Welcome to Story Talk, a series of online conversations between myself and storytellers featured in the Singapore Showcase. In this episode, I chat with museum docent and storyteller Hafiz Rashid. Hi Hafiz, thank you so much for joining me on Story Talk. Would you like to share a little bit about your work and who you are with our listeners and our viewers?
Hi Kamini, thank you so much for inviting me to share in this session. My name is Hafiz. I'm a volunteer docent for more than 5 years, actually going to be my 10th year next year since 2013. I volunteer at the Malay Heritage Centre, but I also do volunteer at other museum institutions such as the Eurasian Heritage Gallery, even the National Library for their exhibitions. And I worked with NLB for 3 years as a library officer. So from there, I had my stint in storytelling for children. Prior to that, as a docent, I do a different kind of storytelling, which is to share and talk about history and about the artifacts to visitors.
So, telling stories to children is really very different to telling stories within a museum setting and bringing alive artifacts, right? Could you share a little bit with us about that? How that experience is like inside a museum where you're surrounded by exhibit items and your role as a storyteller in getting these artifacts to jump out and become alive?
So the challenge is how to make it entertaining enough for them to get interested in these artifacts, especially for some artifacts which are not as showy. Yeah, so usually I will look out for provenance. Sometimes these artifacts belong to notable personalities, so they would have a much more interesting story to tell versus maybe the more showy ones. But then it's just to capture the attention, but not so much of the stories.
You're an expert in Nusantara folklore, and that's some of the stories that you share with children. You're bilingual, you tell in English as well as in Malay. Tell us a little bit more about your love and passion for the languages and the narratives from this region, this Nusantara region.
For me, yes, I am a linguophile. So hence, right now, I'm a student pursuing a bachelor's in Malay language and literature. And I feel that languages do contain certain stories or even words contain certain concepts that help us see the region in a different light, which sometimes cannot be easily translatable to other languages such as English. So for me, that's my interest with regards to language.
I know that you have a passion in collecting fabric and textiles, specifically batik, right? So that brings me to my next point, which is the story that you're going to share with us for the Singapore Showcase. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story?
I do collect textiles, and it's something that I feel it's very prevalent and ever present in Southeast Asia, where we still wear our traditional costumes. And being Malay, you are raised with this visual environment of songkets and batiks with their beautiful motifs and design. But we normally see it as that, as a garment or a traditional textile. We don't look beyond to actually find out that these textiles are another way of storytelling or another way of communication. So in the Malay language, there are two forms or there are two words, which is tersurat and tersirat. So tersurat is what is written physically, in black and white. What tersirat is reading between the lines. So textiles actually convey these additional messages which might not be sufficient with just verbal communication, or sometimes due to the context you don't want to explicitly express what you are feeling, so your textiles help in conveying that emotion and also these ideas. And batik itself is a very a creative medium which the Javanese use to actually convey these messages. In fact, the word for hand-drawn batik is batik tulis. Tulis is not draw but to write. So we can actually see batik as a form of written document. So this is one of my most favorite motifs. So it's comprised of many motifs, but the overall motif itself is known as a tambal. Tambal in Javanese is cognate to the Malay word tampal, which is to patch up
Yeah.
or to stick. So it's a patchwork motif comprised of many different motifs over here. And because of the connotation of the word tampal, to patch up, it's a powerful motif believed to ward off illnesses or even to aid in recovery so that you may be patched up
Oh,
quickly.
to be healed.
Yes.
Yes, to made whole again.
To make whole again. And you have all these different motifs over here. So each of these motifs have their own story. So think about it as if one motif itself is already powerful, how about we have a patchwork of different powerful motifs so that it makes the cloth a much more potent talismanic cloth to be worn.
It's
for
almost
protection.
like a network, right? A network of these patterns and designs combined together that makes it a really strong fabric to wrap around you and to make you feel better or to heal you or to just make you feel stronger. And I think the messages within textiles, the messages that you see in symbols and motifs, are so beautiful, and also at the same time, they have a language of their own for each culture, right? So this piece of fabric here that you have, to me, looks like it's all floral and there are some geometric patterns here. Can you tell us a little bit more about what they could mean?
This motif is known as gring sing, which a gring means sick in Javanese, and sing is be not. So in summary, it means to not be sick. So it's a motif believed to again aid in healing or to ward off diseases. Gring sing itself inspired by fish scales, or some would even say dragon scales.
I see.
So hence it's a very potent motif. Others that you have would be like the parang over here. So this is the parang. You can see this crisscross over here. These chevron motifs over here is a variation of the parang. So parang, it could be interpreted as a machete, as the machete
Yeah.
blade. But there is also another theory that in High Javanese, pirang, which is slanting. So it refers to the direction of how the parang is always portrayed in a slanting manner. And it's a very, again, powerful motif because of its association with royal authority and strength. However, this is not an auspicious motif to be worn at any occasion because parang also sounds similar to perang, which is to war.
Is war.
Yeah,
or go into battle.
go into
Right,
battle. So you do not want to wear this at a wedding if you're invited, unless you are a jilted lover and you want to
Yeah.
send a
message.
a message, right? Yeah. So you wear the parang over here.
Oh, there's so many things and stories and, so many cultural aspects and nuances that you've shared with us based on just this one piece of fabric here and all the patchwork and designs and motifs and symbols that we see here in all these patterns. So it's almost like tiny short stories in a big volume, right? And all these pages are like individual chapters or individual adventures and episodes all collected together in one anthology. And this anthology is something that you can wear around your body, and you can walk around, and others who understand this can interpret them, just like how you've interpreted this entire piece of batik here for us. Thank you so much, Hafiz. So again, coming back to your story, right? Your story is about the origin of a pattern.
So my story is an origin of a pattern known as the Truntu motif, which is a story about a love story about a queen who longs and yearns for her husband, and how it really affected her both mentally and physically as well. And in a way, her efforts in to try to win back the love of her husband, who has since whose love has since faded from her, and so she tried to win him back through batik.
So you can decode the motifs and you can send a message to somebody else. But don't tell us anymore, because we want to come and listen to you. Tell us live at the Play Den. So something else that I wanted to ask you is about your hopes and aspirations for storytelling in Singapore for the future. What are some of the things that you wish for?
Definitely, I would wish for more diversity in terms of stories, because this region actually has a wealth of stories. You can find it in any sources, from folk tales to buildings and architecture, even through textiles such as batik and songket as well. But these stories somehow are not being tapped on as much by other people, probably because of the lack of exposure. Sometimes I feel that in Singapore, although we are situated right smack in Southeast Asia, but we don't really know so much about our neighbors. So definitely, I hope in the future, more young people especially would take up that beacon and that initiative to look beyond our shores, or even delve deeper within our own territory to see these wealth of stories that's just simmering or just laying there underneath the veneer or the facade.
Waiting to be told,
Yeah,
right?
waiting to be told.
Thank you so much, Hafiz, for spending time and talking to me on Story Talk. It's been such a pleasure listening to you and to see all your beautiful pieces of batik as well. Thank you so much, Hafiz.
Thank you, Kamini.
If you enjoyed this conversation between myself and Hafiz, don't forget to listen to his story about batik on Story Threads. And also, don't forget to watch and listen to the other videos featuring the other artists from the Singapore Showcase on Story Talk.